Mignone. He's the Executive Director at RCAL here in Kingston. Anthony, welcome. Good to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, how long have you been doing this at RCAL? And tell us about RCAL, what you folks do.
I've been here since 2011, and the RCAL is the Resource Center for Accessible Living. We're the Ulster County Independent Living Center, and that means that we assist individuals with disabilities to live as independently as possible in the community. And we have over 14 different programs, from special education advocacy to nursing home transition diversion. So I always say we assist people from birth through death.
So you started working here in 2011.
Yes.
As the Executive Director at that time?
Nope, benefits advisor in the back.
Wow. And how long have you had this
part-time
position?
I believe I became the Chief Operating Officer in 2014 and officially became the Chief Executive Officer 2018 or 19.
So as the Chief Executive Officer, what is your day like? What goes on here at RCAL? Because I think a lot of folks aren't really familiar with the organization.
I mean, I'm overseeing all of these programs. So usually I'm the fireman that puts out any of the problems, and I write all the grants, and I do whatever has to happen for the course of the day. But for example, we do architectural modification consulting. So sometimes the towns call, or the county calls and asks us to come and look at a project. And when these, and the hospital, when they're smarter, they call us before they build it. It's cheaper that way. And then I'll get involved with that. I was involved with the comp plan, for the comprehensive plan for the township of Esopus, and we put a disability twist on it and made sure what that is. I was just working with the Ulster County Transportation Development Plan for the next 5 years. So I get involved with that kind of side is mostly what I do. And then, on the wrong day, I'm running reception because, if nobody else is here to handle that, that's how it goes.
Yeah. So you mentioned 14 different programs. What are some of those programs?
So again, special education advocacy, benefits advisement if you need help getting your Social Security disability or maintaining it or keeping it. We have several different employment programs, ranging from basic needs for IDD, which is individuals with developmental disabilities, to understand why you have to get up at the same time every day, and why do you have to get dressed and shower to go to work, and what's employment skills, to just simple and easy, I just need help writing my resume, and maybe a little bit of job development and career orientation. We also do job coaching, and we're in the process of renovating that front building into an employment center, the back end. And then, because of some other partnerships that we've formed, we'll be turning one of our back rooms into a deaf community center, so that the Ulster County Deaf Task Force can move in here with us and have some space. We have nursing home transition diversion, which helps people who have nursing home level of care to stay living in the community. The transition means transitioning them back out of the nursing home into the community. Diversion means we avoided it altogether. And then we have two programs funded through NIL, which is the New York Association of Independent Living, which I happen to be the chair of, that helps assist with the housing element of moving out of the nursing home, with some funding that's called Olmstead, and then Open Doors, which is a transition coordinator to meet with the discharge planner and then our people and all that. And so with those two programs, whether or not your nursing home transition diversion coordinator is here or in any of the other 30 places that do it here in Ulster and Dutchess County, our Open Doors and Olmstead people are the ones that work with you, because we have the county contract for that. We have the state funds from Independent Living Center. We have contracts with the Office of Persons with Developmental Disability. We have contracts with Access, which is Adult Continuing Cooperative Educational Services. We do a lot with the Office for the Aging. We do a lot of other things with the county. I teach bingo size.
You know your job well. Congratulations.
Yeah.
How many individuals do you work with in the organization? Do you know?
I'm going to say at this point, we probably work with about 600 or 700 people a year in some capacity.
Yeah. And how do these individuals learn about you, get in touch with you?
Word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing to me. We just finished our 40th year of celebrations. How many people still said to me, "What ArCal? What's that?"
Mm-hmm.
Oh, are you the Ark? No, we're ArCal.
Right, right, nice. So this, of course, is a show about Italians, so we should
That's
get
right.
to some of that too. Anthony Mignone is full Italian, right?
Yep.
So give us a little background, a little history on your parents and your grandparents, where they came from in Italy and how they came here.
So my father's side, his grandparents came here from the Napolitan area. I believe they met here. I don't think they met there. And then that was his mom's side, and his father was in the Italian Navy during World War II. And there's some convoluted stories about his ship getting sunk while they were fighting us. And it was just at that time that Italy switched sides. So we sank his ship and then rescued him because now they were our allies. All's fair in love and war, right? So then, from my understanding, is that now he was in the water, they got rescued, and then the Germans came along and sank that ship. And he was in the water again. I believe he was in the water for more than a day. And then another American ship came and rescued them. And then they ported in Florida, and he went and said, "I ain't getting on another boat."
Yeah.
And so that's when he came, and that's how he came here.
Was he literally in the water for a day?
Yeah.
No raft, nothing?
He must have had something. He survived.
Yeah, yeah.
But I can't imagine. I don't believe he was in a water. I believe he was on a piece of wood or something.
So that's your grandfather.
That's my father's father,
And
yes.
how about your mother's side?
My mother's side, so great-grandma told me, because my third grade teacher was smart and told me to interview the oldest member of my family, that her family came here in a boat in 1914 because her adopted father was very prominent and had some grocery stores, and the mayor of this town in Sicily, she kept saying Mussolini, so I don't know what this meant, but they had some kind of a fight, and her father just had to take everything that he could and get in the boat and go in the middle of the night because they were going to be killed in the morning, and that's why they came here.
So they, from Italy to New York?
Yep.
In a boat?
Well,
Wow.
they
Yeah.
took a boat to somewhere and then probably got on a big
Yeah.
thing. They had money,
Yeah.
so
And when they arrived here, what was their life like? What did they do?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what they did. Great grandma was only 14 when they came here, and I know
14.
she married my great grandfather when she was 16, and then she had Aunt Mary when she was 17.
And how about your parents? Tell us about your parents. They were born here, obviously.
Yes,
Yeah.
they're both born here. They're both the eldest children.
Mhm.
Everybody was, my great grandparents on my mother's side was all in Brooklyn, and my mother was there until she was 15, and Grandpa moved everybody to Queens, and then all his siblings moved out to Long Island, and then we were all in Queens and near each other, and my father's family was all in Queens until we moved up here, and my mother's family followed, and my father's brother moved to Long Island, and then all the siblings followed my uncle instead of us, which my father seemed to think was great at the time. But
So you mentioned before you have a relative that's 106 years old,
yes,
and
Aunt
she
Mary.
called you because you have a new car or something?
Yeah, I bought a new car,
Tell us that story.
so my mother she calls my mother every day, because Aunt Mary says that my mother is the last one left of the Baglio side, and because her two children are really her stepchildren. So she calls my mother now every day now that Grandpa died, and so my mother must have mentioned I got a new car, so she called me to congratulate me on Sequel Saluta on my new car and all that. But Aunt Mary, yeah, she's 106 years old.
So has she ever talked to you about the secret of longevity? How do you live to 106? What's her trick?
I don't know, but I will tell you that her parents, great grandpa died, he was 87, and for a man who was born in 1896, it's an old life.
Mhm.
Great grandma was 102, Her siblings, Grandpa was 99, Aunt Angie was 91, Aunt Lucy was 89, but she died of COVID in the nursing home, you know. So they all live a long time.
So looks like longevity for you.
Yeah, well, but they don't all look like this. So
Yeah, well, that doesn't matter. You're doing well, right?
Yep. It's been it's a trip, and I know, like I said, I told you before, Aunt Mary took care of her mother. She was, if you can imagine, being 85 years old and having your mother at your birthday party.
Yeah.
You know,
That's so rare.
Yep.
Right.
So
That's so rare.
Her two sons, who, like I said, they're her stepsons, are in their 80s now. You know.
What about Italian traditions? There's so many great Italian traditions growing up, especially when it comes to holidays and food. Any stories there?
When I was young, we were still doing, so we did La Morte, all that we're still doing it, but we were doing it the right way when I was younger. And some kind of tradition that it's kind of like Easter. You wake up in the morning, it's November 2nd, it's All Souls Day. You wake up in the morning and there's a basket, and there's exotic fruits in the basket. You know, back when I was a kid, you could a mango and a star fruit and a prickly pear didn't just come at Hannaford, it was harder. And there would be a couple in there, and there'd be one toy in the center, and it was from your dead relatives. And the social worker called my mother when I went to school when I was in kindergarten and asked all my friends what their dead relatives brought them this morning. But
See, I never heard of that.
I've never heard of that.
We did it every year, and then at night after dinner, people would stop by. So it would usually be my grandparents and my uncle and my aunt, and great Aunt Lucy and Uncle Nick would always come, and sometimes even Aunt Mary or Aunt Angie and their spouses, and they would sit around the table with paring knives, and the fruit would get passed. So everybody would take a bite just to get the taste, because it was expensive. You didn't buy one of everything for everybody. And the kids sat quiet and the adults told stories. And they told stories about when they were younger, and they told stories about their parents. And so you learned things. And so my grandparents were born right next to each other. My grandmother's mother died when she was 12. And so from that point on, Grandpa's mother kind of took care over the mothering part of life. And so her sister-in-laws were really like her sisters. So she had one that she was always in a rivalry with, and she had one that was her best friend. And so Aunt Lucy was my grandmother's best friend, even though it was my grandfather's sister. And there's stories like Aunt Angie, who always had to be better than my grandmother in Grandma's opinion, and when they were young. And she takes the bucket, they're all at the beach together, and she takes the bucket and she starts spinning it around to prove that she could keep the water in the bucket. You know, they're talking centrifugal force, but they don't know it. It's the 30s. Yeah. And to spin. So now, can you do it? So my grandmother takes the bucket and she goes to spin it, but she hits the bottom of the boardwalk and she dumps all the water on her head. So they were probably 8, 9, and so that's how you hear these stories, was sitting around through La Morte. And so that all stopped. I was old enough that I started buying the fruit and having Grandma and Grandpa come over at my parents and go and buy their house. And I did La Morte for Grandpa in November.
Wow. So you were still doing La Morte. Did La Morte come from a certain part of Italy? Because I've never really heard of that.
They were all Sicilians. I don't know. I don't know.
I know the Latino community does.
That was after Halloween, so it was All Souls Day.
Right. Well, it's All Hallows Eve, then All Saints is the first, and All Souls is the second.
And that's all goes all around.
What about Christmas Eve traditions?
Christmas Eve, when I was younger, we used to have 50, 60 people over to do the fish, but you invited my mother's family, my father's family. That's a lot of people right there, and the Haggertys. And when we lived in Queens, there was 7 kids, so there was always a lot of people around. And to this day, my mother we don't make the right fish anymore, but we make a bunch of fish.
What's the right fish?
Well, the right fish, we always had smelts, which I didn't like.
Right. There's certain fish that are supposed to be the fish.
Right.
But by the time I was a kid, My mother makes baked clams.
Yeah.
We get the my God,
Bacalao?
calamari.
The bacalao we always had.
We don't do that anymore. My father doesn't like the smell of fish,
Yeah.
and so we make some salmon. Which this year we didn't make the salmon because
It's
Grandpa
definitely
really
not
was
the
the
right
only
fish.
one that was eating it.
Yeah.
Shrimp, scallops, calamari, mussels. So there's some fish around to keep the tradition, but it's the ones we want to eat, not the ones that we're supposed to eat.
Not the tradition.
Right.
Did you ever have eel?
I've had eel.
Yeah.
It tastes remarkably like a tough chicken. You know.
Why would you want to eat it? A tough chicken?
My uncle brought me fishing in the round out, and we caught eels.
Yeah.
We ate them.
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't have, but we did.
Yeah. You ever miss, I think back when I was young, I came from an Italian family, and there was always something going on. And everybody's gone now. We had 1 million aunts and uncles, 1 million cousins.
Yeah.
It was always fun, and it's like, it's not there anymore.
So my father's side, which is a miracle in itself. So my father has 2 brothers and 2 sisters, and there's 9 cousins. And let me tell you what, they're all still there for Christmas. 30-something of us for Christmas, and they're with their spouses and everything. And they all get together probably at least once a month, if not every other, for birthdays and all that. They're all still around in each other's lives. And most of my cousins, well, 3 of my cousins now have children of their own, and they're all involved with each other. They're still keeping it going. It's getting less and less often that I'm seeing my 2nd and 3rd and 4th and 5th cousins, because we used to see them to celebrate the older people's stuff.
Yeah.
But now that's ending. So we saw everybody not this November, the November before, when Aunt Mary turned 105. We saw everybody, and everybody was up for my parents' 50th wedding anniversary.
Mm-hmm. You still have 3rd, 4th, and 5th cousins?
Everybody does. They just don't know who they are.
Mine, I don't know.
Well,
I know second cousins. That's about as far as I can go.
But you have to remember that if nobody dies, then the family just keeps coming downward, and everybody still knows each other.
Mm-hmm.
So Aunt Mary's kids are my mother's first cousins. They're my second.
Right.
And their kids, Alfred and Maria and Michael, they're my 3rd cousins, and their children are my 4th cousins, and their children are my 5th cousins.
I guess before we wrap up, anything else interesting you want to mention about your family? Any other interesting stories?
My great-grandmother, my grandfather's mother, as she was getting older and older. So you got to realize, nobody died until I was in my 20s. I was starting to think we were immortal. She used to tell us, one of these days, you're going to come here, and you're going to find me dead on the floor. Before you call it the ambulance, you're changing my underpants.
That's a great one. That's a great one.
Because she was 102 when she passed.
Well, our parents always said, make sure you have clean underwear in case you go to the hospital.
Yeah,
That's right.
That was always, that was always the story. There's so many great stories. Yeah. Well, this has been really a delight. Anthony, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
The executive director at RCAL, talking about his Italian background. And Rosalie, thank you.
You're welcome. Good to be here. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.